In the very last slide, what I presented on 19, there was a typing error and I have corrected that. One vector of X was missing. So please have a look at that, the corrected one. I think Sayantan has uploaded the corrected version of the slides. Am I right, Sayantan?
Yes, sir. I have uploaded the corrected one.
So let us get back to the topic, that is economic decisions under uncertainty. And unlike other classes, I would like to be a little slow because I have the entire session today. Basically, focusing on what are the underlying issues. I'm not getting into the details of the approach that we follow in economics in formulating different problems and making the decisions under uncertainty, and you will have some subsequent lectures also on that, particularly when you get into the module on game theory. So I'm not focusing on that. And many of you are well aware of different approaches like maximin, minimax, maximax, expected utility function. All these are well known to many of you. Rather, what I'll be again focusing on, basically, I'll be highlighting the underlying issues with some examples so that it helps you in designing appropriate AI problem. I would repeat, the basic objective of this course is to have a convergence of economics and AI methodology. So I don't want to focus much on the approach that we follow in economics in solving such problems. Rather, I will be highlighting the problems that we face in making some such decisions or having formulation of some such models, and then it is up to you to come up with certain approaches, AI approaches or AI algorithms that can potentially address these problems. To begin with, let me highlight the difference between risks and uncertainty. By risks, we basically refer to the situation when possible outcomes can vary and the probability of occurrence of each outcome is known to the decision maker. The decision maker knows, this is very important, the decision maker knows the probability of occurrence of each outcome. Whereas, in case of uncertainty, this probability is not known. Right? When I toss a coin, I know what is the probability of getting a head or what is the probability of getting a tail. So this probability of getting a head or getting a tail is known. But when I make a decision, a strategic decision, say for example, I don't know how my rivals will react in the market. So if I am focusing on, say, for example, on advertising, I don't know what is the probability that my rivals will also react by focusing more on advertising. They may emphasize on advertising, they may emphasize on having innovative technology, they may emphasize on improving quality of the product. There are various strategic options. And I don't know what would be the probability of the rivals responding through spending more on advertising. So this is an uncertain event, and that is why in many cases we have strategic failures. I'll discuss this part in detail a little later. Here, I'd like to highlight two major aspects of uncertainty. When we talk about economic decisions under uncertainty, two major aspects are very, very important. One is uncertainty in the driving factors. Like say a farmer is planning to cultivate a particular crop, and there may be uncertainty in having regular rainfall or in having adequate rainfall, right? And the second one is the uncertainty in decision failures. Say for example, rainfall is regular, rainfall is adequate, there is bumper crop production, but still the farmers may not get adequate price of the produce. There may be some other factors. And in the process, the cultivation of a particular, the decision to cultivate a particular crop may not be successful. So going beyond the driving factors, basically highlighting on the decision failures may also be very, very important. Say for example, there is or there may be a situation where a particular decision may fail, it may succeed. But again, the related question is, what is the extent of failure or what is the extent of success? So often we don't make any distinction between these two aspects. Maybe one can say that there is very thin line of division between these two aspects. Nevertheless, having clear understanding of these two aspects will be very, very important subsequently. Now, I'm just giving you some example here. How to make decisions under uncertainty. One is, say, for example, in-house R&D decision by farms. Of course, it is a strategic decision again, but I'm just highlighting it separately because the major source of uncertainty may be the failure in the experiment itself. So there may be failure in experiment, in innovation. And you know, R&D has a long gestation lag. And by the time you reach the market with the produce, with the new technology, the market circumstances, market conditions may change. So you are successful in your innovation, but because of changes in market conditions, you are not in a position to reap the benefit of this innovative success. What basically I'm trying to say here, this shows the difference in uncertainty in the driving factors and uncertainty in the outcomes. Remember one thing, simply having success in innovation is not enough. Let me just talk about a bit on this. Let us think of a farm spending on innovation. So the first possibility is it may be a success, it may be a failure. Now, even if it is success, it may be completed in a shorter span of time, it may take a long period of time to have the innovation outcome. So first one is success or failure. Second one is shorter time span versus longer time span. Third is, even if the outcomes are obtained in shorter time span, Now I need to apply for patent. Again, granting patent, first of all, it may be granted, it may not be granted. Second, again, if it is granted, it may take little longer time. It may take shorter time. The next possibility is, suppose innovation is a success. Second, the experiment is successful. Second one is it took shorter span of time. And the third one is patent is granted very quickly. So now I'm going to the market with my innovation outcome. Then also there are certain uncertainties. When I was engaged in this experiment, I was not aware of the fact that my rivals were also, or some of my rivals were also engaged in similar experiments. And let us assume that they are also successful. So both the players are now coming to the market with similar innovation outcomes, maybe, or with similar product, and by and large the same point of time, and this results in strategic rivalry. So now this strategy of innovation is to be combined with some other strategy. The other possibility is that the market circumstances may also change. Consumers' perception, demand, preference, all may change in a span of 3 to 5 years. Say, for example, that I took in completing my experiment and having the innovation outcome. So what essentially I am trying to say, there is a chain of different events and they are interlinked. And how I will be successful in reaping the benefits of my innovation depends on the success or what happens at different stages of the chain. Also, it depends on the rivals. And in every stage, there may be some degree of uncertainty. So the question is how to take care of these different stages. Now I'm basically talking about multi-stages decision making. I mean, basically influence of uncertainty at different stages. And how can that influence my decision making? Remember one thing, often spending on R&D, it's a sunk cost if I live in between. So if an innovation takes a longer period of time, and if I leave, there would be some sunk cost, what I basically cannot recover. So this decision of spending on innovation may require adequate consideration of these factors. If you see data, Indian firms in many segments don't spend much in proportion of their sales value on R&D. Rather, the firms rely more on sourcing technology from others. Question is whether the uncertainties at different stages, along with other factors, of course, play important role in this regard. Second one is, as I was telling you, firm strategic decisions. The major sources of uncertainty in this case would be strategic conjectures by rivals. Let me give an example. Many of you are from economics and you have studied the Purno model. Vittal, are you there? Vittal.
Yes, sir.
Vittal, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, Vittal.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what is the basic assumption in Purno model? In oligopoly? What is the basic assumption?
Sir, all firms want
Can you
to
be a little louder?
all firms want to maximize their profit.
Fine. But when firm 1 is deciding its output, what is it assuming? There is a specific assumption. Be it Purno model, be it Wharton model, be it Swiji model. I'll come back to others, those who are not from economics. What do we assume here? In Purno model of oligopoly, we assume that, so firm 1 assumes that whatever or how much firm 2 is producing, it will continue producing the same level of output, isn't it? And in the process, we derive the reaction function. Reaction function, say if it is a duopoly, reaction function of both the firms we derive. And we solve these reaction functions and we get the profit maximizing output of the two firms. In case of Wharton model, we assume that the same price will be charged by the rival. Accordingly, a particular firm makes the decision. In Swiji model, King demand curve model, what happens? It is assumed that if I am reducing the price of my product, my rivals will not follow me. Sorry, they will follow me. If I'm reducing the price of my product, my rivals will follow me. But if I'm raising the price of my product, my rivals will not follow me. I'm repeating, in Swiji model, in King demand curve model in economics, the basic assumption is that suppose there are two firms. If firm 1 reducing the price of its product, it is assumed that firm 2 will also do the same. It will also reduce the price of its product. So when price is reduced, the rival will follow. But when the price is increased, the rival will not follow. This was the assumption. Now think of this assumption very carefully. In market, in many cases we see the prices of the two competing products, they are moving together, either increasing or decreasing. Question may be that if one firm is raising the price of its product, why is the other firm following? There are many arguments in economics. I'm not getting into that detail. In brief, I will say that there may be a perception in the consumer's mind that, okay, if the price of the product of a particular firm is lower as compared to the rival, maybe the quality of that product is not up to the mark. So in many cases, what we do, we use the price of a product as an indicator of the quality. So this may be one of the reasons. There are, of course, other explanations. I'm not getting into that. What I'm basically trying to say here, how the firms, the rivals would react, this aspect is very, very uncertain. And when this is uncertain, there may be strategic failures. What I was telling you in one of the classes, that okay, I am spending more on advertising, my rival may also spend more on advertising, I am spending more on advertising, my rival may spend more on innovation, I am spending more on advertising. The rival will not do anything, it will simply reduce the price of its product marginally. So many things can happen. Again, firms' strategic decisions can also be driven by, or the success, I would say, the success of strategic decisions may also be driven by the changing market conditions. Again, there are many models on these. I'm not getting into the details. But one thing is very, very clear is that the uncertainty may also arise in strategic conjectures, and this may also influence firms' strategic decisions. Then investment decisions in alternative assets or projects. Many of you have studied the economics course, either as your core or HSS breadth, or those who are from economics. We often say that if I need to make a choice between two alternative projects, what will I do? I'll basically go for expected returns and risks. I'll standardize the risk. So basically I will select a project based on what? The coefficient of variation of returns. So basically standard deviation divided by the mean. So I select the project that has the least coefficient of variation. You have also studied the concept of NPV. You have studied IRR, payback, the concept of payback period, and how the decisions are made, how the projects are selected out of several alternatives. But remember one thing, in all these discussions, either the flow of returns are predicted with certainty, or the probability are known. But we are talking about uncertainty. And when I talk about uncertainty, there may be many situations where policies may change, institutional arrangements may change, market structure may change. In fact, let me tell you, I don't know whether you have seen, there is an index that is called Policy Uncertainty Index. You can see, you just Google, you will get the index. It is provided for some countries, I think around 20 countries. Policy Uncertainty Index. Remember one thing, many investment decisions are made for long term, and many such investment have huge sunk cost. So when investment decisions are made, we talk about ease of entry, but ease of exit is also often taken into consideration. So ease of both entry and exit would be very, very important in making investment decisions. And be it ease of entry or be it ease of exit are in many cases influenced by the policies and institutional arrangements, like incentives by the government to the potential investors to invest in a particular area. So there may be two alternatives. One is an investment option where the return may be higher. Another may be an investment option where there is incentive given by the government. Now, whether the option with incentives would be a preferred decision to make. Remember, these incentives are actually guided by the policies. And if the policies change, these incentives will also change. The investors may have further incentives. The incentives may be taken away also. So what basically I'm trying to say here, in investment decision, we basically use the concepts in judging or in making investment decisions. We basically use the concepts of NPV, IRR, payback period, expected return, risks, coefficient of variation. But in many cases, you will see these concepts are not in a position to capture the uncertainty part. What may arise from policies, from institutions, even from changing market structure. So the decision, I think in many cases you have seen that when I compute NPV, I can add a risk premium in the denominator. Question is whether that is enough. How to accommodate the uncertainties that may arise from policies, institutions. So for example, the government is now planning to regulate certain market segments. Say for example, the government is planning, suppose I want to buy some policies, and now the government is changing the regulatory norms in insurance policy. Whether I still continue buying the same policy what I was thinking before changing these regulatory norms. And the last example can be in this case, the crop choice decision, by farmer. It should be crop choice decision by farmers. Now, what are the major sources of uncertainty here? One is production failure. It may happen because of inadequate rainfall. It may also happen because of changes in market condition, market price, more suppliers into a market on a particular day. Remember, crops, many of the crops are actually highly perishable. And it becomes very, very risky to take a product into the market when the information about market conditions are not adequately known. The various aspects of markets are not known. We don't have proper information. There is either asymmetric information or incomplete information or imperfect information, which may lead to lower price, unsold produce, etc. Now, given these, I'm just basically talking about what usually we do in economics. I'm just giving one example. Basically, this is crop choice by a farmer. 3 crops are there and 3 different scenarios of rainfall: substantial, moderate, light. And if we go by maximum solution, basically I'll prefer crop Z. So here the minimum is 150, here the minimum is 250, and here the minimum is 300. So this is actually the choice, that is choice of crop Z. Okay, if I go for minimax, then I'll basically derive the regret matrix. Basically, for every situation, what is the maximum return and what is the deviation from this maximum return. So this is how these are computed. Okay, and you can see here that these are the deviations, and here the maximum is 250, here it is 450, and here it is 300, and this is maximum. So depending on criteria, crop choice decision is being changed, and you know, I'm not getting into these details. You know very well, I mean, under what circumstances we'll go for maximum and under what circumstances we'll go for minimax. But what I'll be basically focusing on now, the problems in solving or making decisions under uncertainty. What we do, we make assumptions. In many cases, the assumptions may be very, very restrictive. And we go for even mathematical simplification and we make certain conditions. Under what condition, what decision can be taken. But as I gave the example of R&D, the real life problems in economics are more complex, with involvement of multiple agencies, multiple decision makers, multi-stages. So the methodological approach is very, very important while going for AI algorithm. Here basically I am talking about the 2 basic approach in economics. So when you are designing the AI algorithm, what would be your objective? Would you see it from the perspective of positive economics, or it should be seen from normative perspective? When I say positive perspective, basically I talk about explaining what is. Again, the positive perspective basically deals with what is. So whether your AI algorithm would look at analyzing what is, or you should have a normative perspective, where basically you will focus on suggesting what should be. So AI algorithm should have this perspective very clear. And if you are preferring the positive perspective, then what type of decision you are looking at? In many cases, because remember one thing, in many cases decisions are rational, but also there are possibilities when the decisions may be emotional. There are many psychological aspects in making decisions, like say consumers' behavior in the market. It is not always driven by economic rationale. There may be some emotional or psychological aspect of it. So it is important whether you would like to focus more on the rational behavior. In economics, we assume that the decision makers are behaving rationally. What may not be necessarily the case. Or you would be basically focusing on the emotional aspect of it. Rather, I think a more comprehensive approach would be to have a combination of the two. And that is again more challenging. Next one is some aspects of economic decisions under uncertainty. There are many studies on economic decisions under uncertainty, and they are highly mathematical also. You can just check. Highly mathematical. But there has been some changes in the approach. If I see from decision maker point of view, there are models with single decision maker. There are models with large number of agents, and also there are models that are somewhere in between, where we have a few interacting agents, like Kuhn model. Initially, while designing these models on uncertainty, the approach was on expected returns. So you basically select the option that has the highest expected returns. Subsequent emphasis combined both risks and returns. But the latest approach, that is by von Neumann, basically focused on objective uncertainty. And it is based on a set of axioms. What basically I'm trying to say, while modeling uncertainty in economic decisions, the approach has also changed over the period of time, from returns to both risks and returns, to focus on objective uncertainty. And that is what I was telling you in one of the slides, that understanding the uncertainty in decision outcomes would also be very important. And this is the last part. What can we do? Basically, it is suggested that to capture uncertainty aspect, there should be adequate emphasis on subjective beliefs of the decision makers about the unknown aspects of the problem. And these beliefs, these subjective beliefs, can be formed on the basis of a combination of reasoning. Definitely there should be some justification, and knowledge of past behavior. So basically, we can think of moving from pure and objective oriented approach to have emphasis on subjective beliefs as well. and use these subjective beliefs can be used in the decision making process by representing them in the form of a probability distribution. Means if I feel that a particular option can benefit more, then definitely it should have the higher probability. And converting a decision problem with uncertainty to a decision problem under risks. Because the moment you are in a position to derive the probability distribution, you are basically converting a problem of uncertainty into a problem of risks. So to end this discussion, I would say the importance of this topic, PPC sir will be discussing more on the AI part. To have AI algorithms on economic decisions under uncertainty, first we need to understand the complexity of the problem. The example what I showed, crop choice decision by a farmer, it's very simple problem. We are basically varying the situation in respect of rainfall only. But think of the problem of a farmer. There is problem of rainfall, or there may be a problem of rainfall. There may be a problem of, say, for example, pest attack. There may be a problem that the seeds are not up to the mark. There may be a problem that the necessary inputs are not available in time. Suppose the field is to be irrigated and there is power cut. Suppose the farmer has harvested the crop and it is to be taken to the market. But after reaching the market, you see that many sellers like you are present. So there may be many sellers at a particular point of time in the market, which may cause downward pressure on price. So when to harvest? What would be the right time to harvest? Again, you cannot keep it in the field for long. As I said, many crops are perishable in nature. So what to do? If all take produce into the market on a particular day, there would be unsold produce, lower price, and hence failures. Failures in objective of, say, earning more or maximizing profit or whatever you say. So what to do? One aspect of making decision under uncertainty is to give adequate emphasis on access to information. Right? You know, many of you know what kind of problem we can have if we have information asymmetry, like say the problem of adverse selection, the problem of moral hazard. I'm not discussing them in detail. What I'm saying, information or access to information would play a very, very important role in designing AI algorithm even. Because you need to capture that part in your algorithm. To what extent information are available, whether they are perfect information or there are certain distortions, whether the set of information available is complete or not. So I think, again, I'm not an expert of AI, but I feel if some such aspects can be incorporated into the algorithm, then probably more robust decisions can be made under uncertainty. Okay, I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Now, if you have any question, I'll be very happy to answer. Any question? Hello? Any question?
Sir, in like at the starting, you said that the difference between risk and uncertainty is basically that for uncertainty, we do not know the probability distribution of outcomes. But if we like start modeling uncertainty objectively, wouldn't we have to like assume some distribution behind that, and it will become more like risk?
That is what I said. No, if you see in the very last slide, I think I can just go to the very last slide. You see the process. What I'm saying here, this subjective beliefs, if you are having the subjective beliefs about the unknown aspects of the problem, then that can be presented in the form of a probability distribution. Are you getting, Pankuri?
Yes, sir. I was more of looking for an example on how we could convert a subjective belief into a probability distribution.
Okay. Okay. Let us assume that there are three options, right? From your subjective belief, you are basically thinking that option 1 would give you the highest benefit. So you are assigning the highest probability to that. Now, exact probability you won't be able to assign, of course, but you can definitely assign the highest probability to that. Then similarly, say for example, you can have a probability distribution between these three options, like say 50, then 30, then say 20. So it is basically some degree of ranking. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. So the relative weights count. The absolute weights won't. Like just the preferences would matter.
No, it won't be absolute, definitely. That is what it is subjective, no?
Yes, sir. But like if we take like some monotonic transformation of the then that would also, since it would maintain the ranking, it would remain the same. Should give us the same results.
Yeah, that is true. No, I can give another example. Like say, in many cases, what we do, like say, indifference curve approach of Hicks and Allen. What do you do there? Basically, you rank the preference orderings, right?
Yes, sir.
And you club all the combinations that are at the same level. Now,
Yes.
Don't you think it is a relative judgment? It is also a relative judgment. So when you have the indifference map, you have infinite number of indifference curves. But along a particular indifference curve, you have the same utility. Whereas you are saying that utility cannot be measured. So basically what you are saying, whether a particular indifference curve or a particular combination or a particular decision is giving you more benefit as compared to others. So in the process, basically what is happening here, you are converting a decision making problem under uncertainty to a decision making problem under risks. Basically, you are deriving the probability distribution through your subjective judgment. Now, again, the subjective judgment would be more robust as you have more and more information. Again, three aspects are very, very important. There should be no imperfection in access to information. Like, if my rival is having more information as compared to me, then again these probabilities, this subjective judgment and probability distribution would also be misleading. There shouldn't be any sort of imperfection. There shouldn't be any sort of asymmetry. There shouldn't be any sort of incompleteness. So information would play a very, very important role. You can see any textbook on microeconomics. In most of the textbook on microeconomics, there is a chapter on information and what kind of what role information can play in making robust decisions. Are you getting, Pankuri?
Yes, sir. So actually, I was just only thinking, but sort of reminding me of microeconomics, so it clarified that or how these things.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually a part of like I think you have studied the problem of adverse selection, moral hazard.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? So basically, three types of information problem you need to focus on while making decisions under uncertainty. One is asymmetric information, another is imperfect information, third one is incomplete information. And all would have, that's why if you see the very last slide that I was presenting, what we are saying, basically, we should have a combination of reasoning and knowledge of past behavior, right? So on the basis of past behavior and combination of reasoning, you are basically deriving the probability, having the subjective judgment, and on the basis of that, you are basically deriving the probability distribution. Once you have the probability distribution, then decision making problems are much more easier. But think of a problem like R&D decisions. How can you foresee whether a particular experiment would be successful? How do you foresee that the experiment, that the innovation outcome would be granted with a patent? It would be granted with a patent, and that too very quickly. Because scrutiny for patent may also require a long period of time, and in the process, the market scenario may change. So you need to capture the probabilities in diverse perspectives. One is in respect of success or failure of innovation. Second, in respect of granting patent. Again, in both the cases, time span, whether it would be in quick interval or it will take a long period of time. Then the third one is how the rivals will react. And the fourth one is basically how the market situation will prevail at that point of time. So I would suggest, if you are dealing with a problem like this, first you should have the tree for all these possible scenarios. Once you derive the tree for all these possible scenarios, you will see how complex the problem is. So it's not that easy to have a subjective judgment of the situation by combining the reasoning. You may always have a reasoning. You may always have past experience. But when you are making decision on say what will happen 5 years down the line, I think you should have much more information, robust prediction, and then combining the two only you can have subjective judgment which would be effective. Because on the basis of your subjective belief only you are deriving the probability distribution and then you are accordingly making the decision. Basically you are converting a problem under uncertainty to a problem under risks. So it's a complex problem because you don't know the probability distribution. If probability distribution is known, then it is very easy. You just compute expected return. Say for example, you compute the variation and then go for coefficient of variation. That would be enough. Any other question? PPC sir will explain. I'll send the slides to him. He will definitely discuss about the details on AI algorithms. But think of a problem on your own, and I would suggest to have the matrix basically on alternative situations. Any other question? Utkarsh?
No, sir. No, sir. I got it.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if there is no other question, we can stop here. And thank you so much. I think